So from a programmatic perspective, one of the things we've done is really focused on the workforce pathway. In other words, for the student in the classroom, what does that pathway look like? In other words, if I'm a student in secondary education and I want to fly drone technology for a living, what does that pathway look like? And sometimes when we look at this industry, we say, well, flying, we're focused on the pilot, the operator, and the reality is there's so many jobs inside of this industry tied to the drone industry. And so being able to explore that at the secondary level says, look, you can be a pilot, but you can also be a technician. You can be a software engineer. You can be a business development, marketing. So the key to all of this is understanding what the pathway looks like and what the risk profile that you're going into. And so we've built a program that really says, look, Part 107 is the requirement to fly for hire, and that is what we call the first rung on the ladder, regardless of where you get your 107. If you're a Part 61 pilot, you go on the Fast Team website and you complete the online quiz. If you don't have that, you go to the FAA testing center and you sit for your Part 107. But that is the first low-hanging fruit of, okay, you have the knowledge to fly for hire. The primary program is the next step. And the primary program is focused on, okay, now you have your Part 107. Let's talk about the technology. Let's talk about the maintenance skill sets, the site survey that needs to be conducted. And that's all about analyzing the operational site and saying, we really need to be focused on how we analyze the site, because that's a major part of risk management, is saying, what are the hazard domains that exist every time we go out and fly the aircraft? That could be ground risk, that could be aircraft risk, that could be airspace risk. Maybe you're flying around houses because it's real estate, or maybe you're in the utility industry. So the primary program was built for low risk, low complexity kind of operations, visual line of sight. And so the image that was just up was the primary program that focused on the first 4 certifications inside of the primary track. And this program is really catered towards secondary and early college students. And the idea behind this is that, look, you may be on a track to go into agriculture, or maybe you're on a track to be a lineman at an electric utility company, or maybe you're in a criminal justice track and you're going to be a public safety officer. The point is, every industry cluster that we have in the United States is somehow using drone technology. It could be for survey, orthomosaic, data, cargo delivery. There's all sorts of use cases of the technology, but the skill sets, the standards that are set as part of that student in the classroom and what they're learning, they all tie back to ASTM standards, NIST standards, FAA requirements, but also loss control data from USAIG. So that's the first track, that primary track.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just kind of those baseline skills. Now, Josh, is this hands-on training, or how does this actually work? I'm a student, or I'm an adult learner, and I want to participate in this first level coursework. How do I do that?
So it does require flight training. There's a flight training component. It starts as early as the Part 107 program, or what we call safety level 1. We leverage simulation in the early courses, because, again, we want the student to understand safe operations, legal operations, to go outside and fly the technology. And so Part 107, the site survey, all of the ground components are done leading into what we call safety level 4, which is visual line of sight flight operations, VSO flight, we call it. So flight is hands-on. It's training from what we call a TCO, training course outline, but it basically outlines all the different skill sets and competencies you need to fly that technology, because it's not just the psychomotor skills, it's the process. Can you follow checklists? Can you conduct a risk assessment? Can you provide a mission briefing for that particular operation? So it walks through all of that. These are done inside of the classrooms today through a program we call Train the Trainer. And so the whole mission statement for USI is to empower and enable local regional workforce development. And we do that through Train the Trainer programs, where the instructor goes through the same certifications the students take, but then what we have, what is called an instructor add-on. That instructor add-on is focusing on the fundamentals of instruction. We built one specifically for the remotely piloted space, and then flight training as the instructor of record. And so becoming a flight instructor, kind of like a CFI, you need to understand what you're looking for when a student's operating, and the things that you're evaluating, because it's not just knowledge, it's skill set, it's attitudes towards flight. In our world, we call it shared fate. But in aviation, you have a shared fate because you're connected. You're on board that aircraft while it flies. In the remotely piloted space, that you're remotely piloting a technology downrange. And so what we find often in this space is that there's a lack of shared fate from a human factors perspective of the pilot, the individual behind the controls in that aircraft downrange. If it has an emergency, I can't tell you the number of times where it's like, we set the controller down and the aircraft's gone. There's this lack of responsibility that you have to train into and understanding, tied to that remotely piloted operation. But that is the primary program, is to empower the local instructor to then provide that training to their student.
So number one, Josh, I want to acknowledge Greg Larson's saying hello from AGS. So hey, Greg, I know there's a ton of people on LinkedIn. It's buzzing. So keep those comments coming. We love them. Great to see you out there again, Greg. So this train the trainer, how many, you're in, like, I'm going to say the wrong number, so I'm not even going to say the number, because every time I talk to you, Josh, that number grows. How many states are you in with this kind of first level program, train the trainer?
So with Part 107 or primary programs, we're in all 50 states with the program today.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I feel like when we started, it was like it was like less than half of that. And then the next year was like 35, or something along these lines.
Yeah, no, I mean, it started with one. It started with one.
Well, of course it had to start somewhere, but I mean, yeah, that's amazing. So, and I know a great example here, my hometown, or my home state anyway, not my hometown. It's about an hour and a half drive for me to Buena Vista, Colorado. Taylor from Mountain West UAS. I know he works very closely with the Buena Vista High School, and they're doing great things with your program, training kids out there. So I know he's a huge fan. Obviously, I'm a big fan. But 50 states, wowza. Okay, so you help these teachers. You get in the classrooms. These kids are doing stick and rudder stuff. They're getting to learn checklists, safety management systems, crew risk management, CRM, as you said earlier. Tell me about that next level advanced. What does that look like, and what does that do?
So where primary is really a skill set as part of a career field. So we call it kind of the add-on. It's the tool in your toolkit that you're doing as part of a job that you already have, or a career you already have. The advanced track is really focused on the operational component, the safety components tied to advanced operations. Now, advanced operations are aircraft over 20 pounds. This could be beyond visual line of sight, flight over people, anywhere you have an increased amount of risk. This could also be the dollar value of the technology you're flying, because some of these technologies are getting up there in cost, not just from the aircraft, but the payload, the technology.
Yeah, the sensors. I mean, some of these sensors can be like tens of thousands of dollars, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They can, and when you look at that from an ROI perspective, you want to keep that sensor flying for as long as you possibly can, because that is a very expensive payload. So the advanced track is focused on the next step. So once you get to the end of primary, the idea is, okay, now you have psychomotor skills, you understand the aviation concepts, the electromagnetic spectrum, the data link, free space, path loss. You understand the complexities of operating a technology in a visual line of sight capacity. Now we start focusing on, what does BV loss, beyond visual line of sight operations, look like, or advanced risk? How do we measure that from a risk assessment perspective? How do we identify the hazard domains that exist and then deploy that aircraft in a safe, responsible place? And so the advanced program is built for what we call advanced level 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 certifications that make up the advanced track. It is the next step. We've actually got, again, 10 years. We now have high school students that are jumping into the advanced program in Florida. Everything's getting pushed down. We started, by the way, with the primary program, safety level 1, in senior year of high school. This was back in 2015. That is now pushed down to 6th and 7th grade.
No kidding.
Now, again, not every school district is the same, but we've got a lot of middle schoolers that are now learning and understanding and passing certification exams while they prep to take that Part 107 as they get into high school. The advanced track is meant to be the carry-on track to that. So advanced level 1 being that human factors, crew resource management. Advanced safety level 2 is the practical implementation of safety management systems. This is really important as you get into advanced operations, because your package delivery companies, your Part 91 waivers that we see for BV loss, and even visual line of sight ops, those waivers dictate, they demand a safety management system that is akin to the risk profile of the operation. And so understanding as a pilot, a personnel as part of a team, how SMS deploys inside of the program is critical. So that's level 2. Level 3 and level 4 are focused on the aircraft specific training. So think of it like the type rating specific to that airframe. You're going to understand everything from the systems and redundancies. This is like your pilot training, where you have to learn all about the systems on board an aircraft. Because again, if you're going to be able to respond proficiently to an emergency or abnormal situation, you need to understand the systems on board that aircraft, the electrical systems. If there's fuel, you need to understand the fuel and oil system, the generator. You need to understand what's going on with an aircraft, with the data the telemetry is bringing back to you, which is where level 3 comes in. It's all about systems education and simulation of operations of that platform. Level 4 is flight training. Today we do flight training under waiver. And the waivers basically allow you to go downrange. It's incredibly important to us that if a student's going to go into an advanced industry class, they have to prove their ability to fly, their skill set, their proficiency in following checklist procedures, their ability to manage risk. That's done through flight training profiles where there's flight cards. It's very akin to like a Part 141, like traditional crewed aircraft flight training, specifically geared for the remotely piloted space. And this allows you to take any aircraft, be it 25 pounds beyond visual line of sight, or large hybrid fuel 200-pound aircraft, and tie that training profile where the user interface may be different, but how it's operated in a safe, professional, proficient manner is very much the same across technologies. And so that's where that whole advanced program comes in. Today, that's delivered at the collegiate level primarily. And then 4-year universities are deploying that as part of their either certificate, minor, or 4-year degree.